Well, let's go back to Monday, I guess. Cheers. Welcome back, everybody, to me doing the weekly navel-gazing thing on Monday, by which I mean I'll talk about all the books I read last week and what else happened, and then I'll talk about plans for this week and talk about other stuff, and we'll see how long this will go. Yeah, let's get started with books I read last week, and as promised, it was not exactly a lot. In fact, I did just finish The Age of Surveillance Capitalism by Shoshana Zuboff, and yeah, it's a brilliant book. You should read it. It's really, really important stuff. And yeah, I think it came out in like 2018, 2019, so it's like 6 years out of date, and obviously stuff has moved along, but the basic premises I think are really important to understand, and yeah, highly recommend it. And then I did start, and by the time this will be rendered and uploaded, hopefully we'll have finished Careless People by Anna Wynne Williams, which is, of course, that book about Facebook. And yeah, see, it's about as bad as I expected it to be. And yeah, I feel the issue, or like one thing that I find interesting about that book is that we can get different things out of a book. This is clearly a book that does, is written to cover the author's ass in a lot of ways, or possibly assuage her own conscience in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of like questions there, like how much did she actually realize during her time and just not actually deal with, and so forth. All of that stuff is in there, and it can be really, really frustrating to read it for those reasons. On the other hand, I'm reading it because I want to have like a sort of like look at like Facebook's culture during those times, and I have no reason to doubt her portrayal of like general stuff going on at Facebook. That all tracks, and I think that kind of is one of those like questions of like, how do we approach books? What kind of expectations do we have when we start books? And also what, why are we reading specific books? And I want to read it for, a portrayal of that. And I'm willing to ignore all of the sort of like frustrating stuff about the author making it very clear that she clearly didn't understand anything and was so naive, and I'm very much doubting that, because if you've worked at the fucking United Nations for a while, you kind of have to, you're a diplomat, you're a trained diplomat, you probably know some things. You can't be this stupid. And I think that's very frustrating if you're reading this for, generally wanting to hear her story and so forth. But if you just want to have like a portrayal of like Facebook's office culture and things like that, then I think it's still worth reading that book. And I feel, managing sort of like our expectations in a lot of ways is important. It kind of goes deeper into like, depending on why we are reading a book, we can, live with certain other aspects. Like reading a book because you want to understand why this book is really important is a very different thing from reading a book because you want to be entertained, or because and I feel this is a wonderful example of explaining why that is the case. So yeah, I'm not enjoying it, but I'm getting the things out of it that I wanted, so I guess it's fine for that. And yeah, that's all I managed to read because festival, as I said. So what will I be reading this week? Well, as I said, I'm going to finish, after clicking off here, I'm going to finish Careless People, and then I'm going to move on to Hubris Maximus, The Shattering of Elon Musk by Fez Siddiqui. And yeah, that's a book about the last couple of years in Elon Musk's sort of like life, business dealings and all of that, and policies and his entry into politics. And I'm sure this is going to be like a really fun read. No, it's going to be highly frustrating. But as I said last week, I want to, work on the AI video this week. And since Elon Musk is one of the sort of like main people in charge of like one company that produces currently a AI chatbot that a lot of people use, I feel it's important to have that specific sort of like base covered as well. So that's why I'm going to read it, and we'll see how I feel afterwards. So that's that. Maybe I'll also read this week Techno-Feudalism by Yanis Varoufakis, because it also feels somewhat connected to the whole like larger point, but we'll find out about that once I'm done with Hubris Maximus. And yeah, that's as far as my plans go for now with reading. There's gonna be more reading, I'm sure about that. I just don't know what it will be. I'm open to suggestions, but I'm also going to just like see what happens. I think next week is when, or is it this week when The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno Garcia comes out, and if when that comes out, I'm going to read that because I'm excited for it. It sounds really cool. It's, witches and dark academia and, should be fun. So that's another one that I'm looking forward to. I just can't remember if that's like, I think it's next Wednesday or Thursday, something like that. I vaguely seem to remember like something around the 15th, 14th, 16th, that kind of thing, right? That's sort of like roughly what I'm remembering right now. So, yeah. That's reading plans. And videos, well, I didn't make any. But I already, said that would be the case because, I was away from like Wednesday until 4 or 5 p.m. yesterday, and that's too late to still record a video because I first needed to get cleaned up. And, yeah. So, videos this week. And, yeah, I'll do my best to actually get the AI video recorded. I feel I have most of the pieces in place. Just want to, cover those last spaces with the Elon Musk thing, which should probably be done by tomorrow, or I guess so. And I'll hopefully start, like, actually scripting the whole thing. Well, not scripting, but, getting some of the main points down on paper so I can push them around and get the structure sorted. Hopefully I'll get that done in the next day or two as well, so I can actually sit down and record it. I don't want it to become as long as the last video I did, so hopefully it'll be, something I can record in like 2 days, and it's definitely going to be longer than like, say, 20 minutes because there's a lot to cover, but I don't want it to be another like 3-hour video because this is supposed to be a quick thing before we return to like the next larger project, basically. So that's one video that will happen this week. If there's another thing, then maybe I'll get to that, but I haven't actually caught up on, say, booktube things from the last week, so I don't know if there's been like an important conversation that makes me really angry, because I haven't watched any booktube yet. I'm still getting caught up on all kinds of other stuff because, that's just life when you don't look at your phone for like 4 days. It's refreshing, but it's also, it can lead to a bit of a really rough landing when you come back home and go like, oh shit, all of this happened. So that's kind of where the video plans are. As always, if you have like a, hey, have you seen this? Do you feel like you need to talk about this? You can always drop me like a message somewhere and I will, look at it and we'll see if I feel confident in having an opinion on that specific subject. So there's always that. So hopefully one video this week, maybe something else if, I feel like that. And yeah, hopefully this week will be much more productive. There is no actual festival happening this week, so yay! Although on Friday I'll go and see Iron Maiden because, you never know how many times they will come back, so I feel it's one of those big bands. If I get a chance to watch Iron Maiden one more time, then I will always go and watch Iron Maiden one more time because I've not been disappointed with them live in a long time. So that's, something to look forward to, but just one day, so hopefully it'll not actually keep me from, actually doing the rest of the work that I plan to do for the channel for this week. So that's something to look forward to, I guess. On the other hand, the next week after that, I hopefully also will, hopefully get work done and have time to focus more on the channel until the end of the month, which is good because there's other stuff happening in my life at the moment. I did just come back from the dentist this morning, and I got x-rayed to see if after they pulled the tooth, the bone has recovered enough to actually put in an implant, and it seems that is the case. So I'm waiting for them to actually send me the final price tag for the thing, and then because I have to see that written down and then go yes, I agree, I will do this because, implants are not covered by healthcare in Germany unless you have a specific additional healthcare that you have to pay extra for yourself, which I don't have because I can't afford that. And that means I have to pay that out of pocket in one way or another. And that's certainly going to take help from friends, family, and so forth because I don't have that kind of money, but, that's the process, so they'll hopefully screw in some implant in the next couple of weeks, and then I have to wait for another 4 to 5 months until they can actually, put on the final new tooth, and then by the end of the year, if all goes well, I will have a less piratey look yet again. We'll see. Unfortunately, at the same time, they discovered that the root of the adjoining tooth, the other front tooth, is probably inflamed, the tip of the root, so I guess I'm gonna get a root canal. Sounds fun. So that's also something that's not hopefully, but like that's going to happen in the next week or two, and we'll see how those kind of health things will impact my ability to focus on anything and productivity. Because like I'm not scared of dentists. I'm not scared of doctors in general. I'm more scared of like the logistics and the administrative stuff around that, of like dealing with bureaucracy, something that I'm really, really bad at. Writing emails, really bad. Replying to emails, even worse. Replying to messages, also not exactly great. So that's always a fraught time when I have to figure these kind of things out. And so that's going to take some of my ability to actually, focus on things I want to do, and we'll see how all of that goes. And that's sort of the broader picture at the moment. And I'm somewhat excited to get the AI thing out of the way, because it's definitely, it's an important topic. It's a topic that's not going to go away anytime soon. And one thing I want to do with the video that is coming is to sort of like pull in several elements of this, because a lot of the discourse that I've seen, especially in like book spaces, is heavily focused on using one specific type of artificial intelligence to maybe put authors, or maybe put artists. Mostly it's focusing on images, of course, put the artists out of work, which that's definitely something that's happening. But there's like broader elements in, why publishers are doing this, versus why individual authors, like self-published authors, might be using some form of artificial intelligence. And then there's elements to like, but what's the specific sort of like artificial intelligence models that are being used for this? What kind of sort of like additional things, what externalities are you buying into if you use one of those? Because these things are created by people. Technology is always created within a larger framework, and the attitudes and ideologies of the people that are creating these specific tools certainly comes into that. Now, I already mentioned Elon Musk, and we learned about the whole like white genocide thing that Grog did recently, and those things I feel are important as well when we talk about that. And we have to talk about capitalism, we have to talk about ideology, we have to talk about the sort of like underlying attitudes, the underlying fears, the underlying sort of like almost religious sort of like faith in creating like general artificial intelligence that will rule the world. We have to take all of that into account. So there's more to be talked about. I'm somewhat excited to do that, because I feel it might actually add something to the current conversation. And that's usually what I'm trying to do here, in a way, right? That's something I was talking about with a friend over the last couple of days, like what I enjoy about doing YouTube videos. And I feel like I hesitate to call it educational, but like to add information, to maybe help people understand things better. That's something I enjoy, when it's something that I genuinely feel that I know something about, which is, why I do a lot of the research things as well. And if I can break it down in a way that is more accessible, or if I can maybe get someone to listen to me, because I'm just like a long-haired dude drinking beer in front of a camera, and I'm not pretending to be incredibly well-educated. I'm trying to keep the barriers, sort of like the more emotional barriers that make it harder for someone without an academic background to listen to someone with an academic background, or so forth. Like, the things that like years and years and years of actual anti-intellectualism have sort of like brought us to, right? I'm trying to break that down, and hopefully making it more accessible with this more conversational, more relaxed kind of style, which I hope I can do. You never know, right? But that's certainly something that I hope to achieve with the artificial intelligence video, because that stuff is unfortunately highly politicized, and it is highly political, and we need to be aware of those things and add that, because otherwise we fall into like traps that other people that have felt unease with specific sort of like technologies and technological advances, and failed to sort of like look at those like other like driving forces behind it and just focus on one specific effect. If we do just that, then it's much easier to sort of like be overrun by that technology, which is clearly much more, has backers that have like a lot more power and influence in the world and ability to shape the world than, say, I have, or probably most of you, unless Sam Altman is watching my YouTube videos, which I doubt. So yeah, that's sort of like the question of like what can we do, and what can I do, and that often comes up with that whole question is like, so I'm very unhappy with the world right now. I clearly am, and I suspect some of you are as well. And then you talk about that, and one question that often comes up is like, if you talk with someone who's also very unhappy with the world, but maybe in a different way, and they're like, yeah, but like, so what are you doing about it? And we need to sort of like figure out what the things are that we can do, going to protests when they're somewhere where we can get to, or going and voting, doing those things. What kind of forms of activism are there? What kind of forms of like advocacy can we do? What kind of what can we bring to the table in a lot of ways? And I feel if I'm able to, from time to time, add the sort of like broader context when we have conversations about books, which clearly mean a lot to a lot of people, if we can add those sort of like broader themes, and maybe some people recognize them and then draw their lessons from that, and their sort of like conclusions from that, and then realize that they can add something else to the table. And that's also like a small way of doing stuff beyond just me when I read, say, nonfiction books that help me to sort of feel more, well, not comfortable with the world, but like at least feel like I at least sort of understand what's going on, which is the first step to feeling less powerful, less powerless. Yeah, but you know what I mean. Less disempowered, I guess. Like if I can help with that for other people, then I guess that's one small thing I can contribute to the general question of like, how can we, maybe unfuck the world a little sometimes. And I know this sounds like very activist in a lot of ways, but it's just something that has always sort of like driven my actions. Like I really, really, really hate sort of like injustice, and I really hate people deliberately not engaging with anything, and that just like really, really makes me very, very angry when I see people who clearly could do something not doing that. And that's why I try to do the things that I can do right now in one way or another. And hopefully this week and the next week and the week after, sort of like the July time, I guess, allows me to maybe focus some more on getting the AI video out and getting the next video started on like the fandom stuff, because that's, once again, that's politics directly impacting what we are doing here when we talk about books, and how we engage with books, and how we engage with media, and how we talk to to each other, and how we talk about each other. And if we can sort of like maybe fix just some of that and get like everyone sort of like on the same table there, at the same table there, and understand that sometimes, even if we don't mean what we say, when we dunk on someone on Book Talk or whatever who have like a weird opinion we don't share, that what we're actually doing is perpetuating older sort of like systems of, well, often racism, patriarchy, sexism, that kind of stuff. And most of us don't want to do that, right? Like, so being aware of why we are reacting in certain ways is also helping, I hope. And that's why I want to make that third video in that broader sort of like book talk, anti-intellectualism, whatever discussion and discourse. And that will involve, talking about psychology and talking about sociology of fan spaces, that kind of stuff. And I'm excited for that as well, but I feel the AI thing hopefully is a quick step in between, and maybe we can then take some lessons from that as well for the next sort of video. And that's one of those things I'm trying to figure out how to deal with more, when I realize that like the things I say in a lot of these videos and the books I read sort of like over time sort of build up my world, my thought world in a lot of ways, and my worldview. And one of the beauties, I guess, in a lot of ways of reading a lot and consuming a lot of like the specific type of media that I consume over the years is that that I find more and more ways where these things impact one another, right? Like when I read Frantz Fanon, reread some of like all the stuff that had read before earlier this year, I did not know that I would read, say, Tochi Onyebuchi's books, Goliath and Harmattan Season, like this year as well. But once I did, I'm like, hey, this is awesome. This connects. I can relate these things to each other, and that's something that I genuinely enjoy about reading and talking about books in a lot of ways, is that I can make these connections, and all of it kind of sometimes connects to something else. It sounds almost like conspiracy theory, but it's not. But like, because it's not like this proves this or this causes this, but it's more like, hey, if I've read this and I have read this, then these two texts might be in conversation, or I can put them in conversation with one another. And that's like one of those videos I still think about, like maybe making is a video about science books or like academic books or nonfiction books that are wrong for one reason or another, but how they impacted the genre that we're reading, or like genre fiction in a lot of ways. Right? Oftentimes it's older texts that have just like been overtaken by science and academia making progress. Like one of, I guess, the best examples there is James Fraser's The Golden Bough, which is an amazing book to read and has had a huge impact on a lot of like fantasy books afterwards, including Terry Pratchett. But also, like, no one in anthropology takes that book seriously anymore because, yeah, it's 120 years, 130 years almost old at this point, and it's just like wrong. It's wrong in a fun and interesting way. And you have books like that, and you have academic books that are actually not necessarily completely wrong, but also, you know, do weird things that have had a huge impact on fantasy and science fiction, because authors also do that thing where they take all the other stuff that they've read before and they draw connections. Sometimes these are connections that, you know, are real, and sometimes they're just like connections, and that's the beauty of doing fiction, is like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if this were actually true? So I'm just going to run with it, even though I know the science is not conclusive or anything. I'll just run with it because it's fucking awesome. And that's like one of the beauties that, you know, of science fiction in particular, like, or speculative fiction in general, is that we can do this. And sometimes that will then motivate other people to do more things. And that's then where, like, you know, some dangers creep into all of that, because what if you write like a really cool book about how evil artificial intelligence is, and then someone else reads that book and goes like, clearly we need to do something because I've seen Terminator and we clearly need to build good AI so we don't get like the bad AI. And that power that authors have is also like really interesting to me, because obviously you can't blame an author for everything people do after reading their works. That's not how that works. But there is still some responsibility, or at least I feel not the responsibility to get it right, like, but authors should be aware that if we are creating art, if we're writing books, there's some power in that. There is some power. We wield some power when we write books that other people read, and that, you know, then sort of translates to what we do when we are on, say, booktube. Once we have like a platform of like a certain size, there's power that comes with that, and being aware of that, at least maybe hopefully, stops us from doing too much damage, right? Like, or maybe doing too ridiculous a thing, too reckless a thing, and being maybe more cautious in what we do in that regard. And I think that's something we can see a lot with like these ways that, say, wrong science influences really cool books that then influence people who may still go back to that wrong science, and then that can have like problematic consequences. On the other hand, there's obviously also like people just like actively misreading texts, which is, you know, something that, say, Speculative Whiteness by Jonathan Carroll really talks about. That's still a book that I want to get back to or integrate more in my videos as well in the future. But we'll see. For now, I'm just happy that things are moving on with the whole Till situation. I'm happy that I feel motivated and engaged to actually do the next video on artificial intelligence, and hopefully stuff will be fun in the next couple of weeks in one way or another. Also, it's good that like temperatures have dropped where I live by about like 15 degrees, and it's not, you know, last week it was like 41 degrees Celsius. That's like definitely over 100 in Fahrenheit. So really bad. Now we're a lot colder. And that's great. That helps me with focusing. That helps me with actually getting stuff done, and not just like lying somewhere in a corner and slowly melting, which no one wants. So yeah, that's that. I once again thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for sticking with me when I fuck up. Thank you with sticking with me when I, you know, don't do anything. I hope you had a good week. I hope you had fun with something here or there, and enjoyed life in one way or another, despite how strange the world is these days. And I hope you have a great week. I hope you read some good books. Let me know what you read and do at the moment, if you feel like it, down there in the comments. And yeah, have a good week. I'll see you next time. Do the things you're supposed to do, and until then, thanks and cheers.